Anthony says, after listening to your episode last week, I couldn't help but think that Ben's premise about the internet getting worse due to AI is rooted in a presupposition that AI-generated written content will not improve. Is it not possible that with advances in AI's capabilities, eventually AI and AGI will become capable of producing top-tier written content at massive scale? For example, think stratechery level pieces, but for other industries like banking, airlines, etc. What do you think? P.S. Don't worry, even if AGI starts writing and podcasting about tech, my subscription dollars are safe with you. My podcast players year in review let me know I listened to 82 hours of Sharp Tech this year. Amazing. If anybody out there can beat Anthony, then please email at sharptech.fm. Hit us up. 82 hours is truly nuts. Thank you, Anthony. Do you have thoughts here, Ben?
Well, number one, if AI is this much better, I think the way this plays out is not that the structure of the market stays that it is, which is these disparate websites indexed by Google. It's that it becomes integrated into Google, right? This is sort of the bit I talked about, where if AGI becomes this good, the way that will play out is all your answers will be on Google, and Google's AI will be that good. Sorry, let me use AI, not AGI. So, and Google's business model will have to change to accommodate that again, because they're not, and this is going to be the challenge, is figuring out the advertising. But as far as user behavior goes, if you have a fundamental shift in the economics of a market, the market structure does not stay the same. The market structure will change. Now, it might take a while for it to change for all the reasons we've talked about, why the status quo can linger. But if we have this world, my assumption is that this current structure we have will look very different. And so that's answer number one. Number two, I'm not worried about being replaced by AGI. If I am, well, it happens. This gets to some of the philosophical questions of what is or isn't sort of AGI, what is creative. I was thinking about this before. Obviously, we've been talking about it, but like OpenAI has a very loose definition, which is AI can do like most productive work, right, or in an economically beneficial way or something along those lines. The interesting thing about that question is it runs in both directions, which is it that AGI gets really smart, or is it that a lot of work doesn't take much smarts to complete? Right? Like that is sort of the question. I do think that one of the great ironies is everybody criticizing or whatever, like the YouTube influencer or the blog, which is the old making fun of the podcaster, which was the old making fun of the blogger, and there's a long running sort of theme. Is that
now podcasters are cool? Just for the record, we are on YouTube and stuff. It's awesome.
I think we're already not. We were long past the days of being cool, and we've embraced that, Andrew. Remember?
That's true.
Penelope has words for you. That's right.
Yeah.
So I do think again, I am heavily biased in this regard, so take my words with a grain of salt. I do think there is an aspect of humanity that we bring to the table that will be significantly much more difficult for AI to replace. And the folks that succeed in all those industries, influencer or YouTuber or whatever it might be, are bringing something more than just knowledge to the table. And I would argue, I think there is a level of insight that is wholly original, that is not just sort of like figuring out new things from old content, that I think will preserve. Now, how many jobs are actually about producing wholly original content? Like to take today, for example, I think an AI could have probably produced an accurate understanding of the Google Epic case, because it just involves knowing the facts, right? Like, and sort of like drawing the connections there. Now, there's other areas of coining or understanding, tying together lots of disparate areas that are not obvious and producing something new that I don't think we've seen yet, and I'm waiting for evidence that AI can do that. But again, maybe I'll be wrong. We'll see. I'm wholly biased on this point. I think my job is going to preserve. I want my job to preserve. So take what I say with a grain of salt.
I do too. Don't come for the podcasters. No. So I think what interests me is that obviously you can look at how far along AI content is now and AI generated writing is now and think, oh my God, where is it going to be in 5 or 10 years? And the smart money is to bet on that side of the spectrum. But I also come back to what you mentioned about a month ago. We were talking about the difficulty with AI is the final 2%. You can get to 95, 96, 97%, but the final 2 or 3% has always been the challenge. And I think that could also prove true in writing, where like I've read enough stilted chat GPT stuff the past year or so that I now sort of want to adopt a wait and see approach before I assume that just all of journalism is going to be replaced by AI writing.
Or also realizing that 98% of journalism is stilted and annoying sort of.
Well, that's true, but I don't know. Right now, it's exceptionally bad. I'm not going to name any names. There are a couple newsbreakers that the AI writing reminds me of, but it just beyond that, I do sort of I feel like we've all sort of taken it as a foregone conclusion that AI will make that leap, and then suddenly it's going to be indistinguishable from the human writing we read every day. And I'm not sure that's definitely true.
There's this long-standing mistake made by technologists in general, which is to discount in part because they completely fail to understand the human component of everything. Right?
Yeah, I mean, like this is like human writing piece unique.
This is a standard Silicon Valley failure case. I mean, this is, you go back to Apple, right? Steve Jobs. We're at the intersection of technology and liberal arts. What does that mean? What that means is we actually attempt to understand normal people and what matters to them instead of getting hung up on specs.
And
right?
Actually do. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Everybody's attempting, but I think Steve Jobs actually did.
No, a lot of people are not attempting, right? Like you like remember the classic iPod comes out, it's on Slashdot, less space than a nano, blah, 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 lame, right? Why? Because you just looked at the numbers, you said that sucks. There was no actual understanding of what is the user experience? What does it feel like to actually carry it around? Like all these sorts of pieces. And this isn't just a tech thing. Like one of my, seminal first articles was taking on Clay Christensen, like godfather of like the sort of innovation sort of bit, who I, to be clear, admire greatly. I've read all his books. I'm sad I never got a chance to meet him before he passed away. I did get a chance to do a podcast for years with one of his proteges, James Allworth, which started because he was so mad that I wrote this piece, which is saying these business folks are completely dismissing and failing to understand the value of a user experience and why that matters in consumer markets. When when the buyer is the same as the user, the things they value will differ. All these examples in your books and your articles and why you are saying that Apple is he was so sure Apple would lose in smartphones to Nokia because it's just going to be sustaining innovation. All the examples were situations where the buyer and the user were different. The buyers would buy based on specs. They would buy based on an articulation of things. And you see this in so many areas. You have a basketball podcast, right? What's the core criticism? I won't speak for you. I won't put a mouse in my pocket. I will speak for me. The core criticism I have of the whole analytics sort of movement is what happens is you end up only caring about and focusing about what can get onto a spreadsheet. And you will talk about, yes, we know there's other things that matter, but what happens is when stuff can actually be articulated and quantified, that overwhelms, you forget about that other part because you can't measure it. And it's not a purposeful dismissal, it's an inevitable dismissal that comes from wholly quantitative analysis that forgets about the qualitative aspects. And voice service is given to the qualitative aspects, but no real credence is because, God gets an opinion, everyone else has data, or whatever sort of the
right.
phrase is sort of thrown at. And I think you see this all over the place where stuff that can be measured becomes overly valued because there is stuff that matters that can't be measured. And when the reality is the stuff that can't be measured is in almost all cases vastly more important than the stuff that can be measured is.